This tunnel was sealed off in 1992. They said it was for safety. They lied. It's 3:28 in the morning and I'm still inside the tunnel. My phone's dead. My flashlight flickers every time I breathe too hard. But it's not the dark that's the problem. It's the sound. Something is dragging metal through the wet concrete behind me. Slow, deliberate. It scrapes, pauses, then scrapes again. And it's getting closer. I found the entrance sealed behind 3 layers of steel and rusted signage. They said it was condemned after a collapse in '92, that no one made it out. But the concrete was hollow. It echoed when I knocked. So I opened it. And now, I think it opened something in me. If you're hearing this, subscribe. I don't think I'll be able to warn anyone else, not from where I'm going. I didn't tell anyone I was coming here, not my brother, not my supervisor, not even Mara. I left my apartment just after midnight with a bag, a crowbar, and a half-charged flashlight, headed south down the old county road until the GPS went blank. The tunnel isn't on any current maps. You have to find it by memory, if someone else's memory counts. I only knew where it was because of a letter my grandfather left, folded into a journal I found after his funeral. One page was torn and yellowed, dated October 1992, with just 8 words written in ink so heavy it bled through. Don't ever open it, not even once. I followed the sketch he'd drawn. It led past an abandoned way station, then down a slope thick with thorn bushes and black rot. And there it was, a wall of concrete eaten by vines, a welded steel plate where the mouth used to be. Weld lines traced haphazard arcs like a scar trying to hide something too deep to stitch closed. The lock was gone. The steel had already been cut from the inside. I hesitated. For all my bravado, I stood there too long, breathing in the copper stink of the earth. My flashlight beam caught old warnings scorched into the concrete. Do not enter. Danger. Sealed by order of the state. Most of it had been defaced, scratched out or overwritten by symbols I didn't recognize. Circles within circles, spiral cuts, a single eye with no pupil. The air coming from the tunnel wasn't stale like I expected. It was cold, clean, almost new. I stepped through the gap. Immediately, sound changed. The world behind me felt distant, muffled like I'd dunked my head underwater. My boots echoed too loud. My breath fogged unnaturally fast, like the temperature had dropped by 20 degrees the moment I crossed the threshold. The walls inside were narrow and wet, stained with ancient soot and moss. But the deeper I walked, the more perfect everything looked. Smooth concrete, no mold, no water damage, like someone had rebuilt part of it, hidden from time. That's when I saw the first handprint. It was child-sized, pressed high above eye level, a single red palm print on the ceiling, too bright to be blood, too fresh. It hadn't dripped. I stared at it, unmoving, for what felt like minutes. Then the sound came again, metal on stone, a dragging rhythm. Much farther back then, but distinct. I turned off my flashlight. Something told me it could see the light. Complete blackness swallowed me. I kept one hand on the wall, guiding myself by touch. 10 steps, 20. The air grew warmer, the smell changing from earth to something sweeter. Foul but sweet, like spoiled jam or fermented fruit. I heard something breathe. Not an echo, not wind. Something breathed, one sharp inhale, just beside my ear. I ran. I don't remember how long. My feet kept slipping. The tunnel began sloping downward, slowly at first, then steep, like a spiral. I scraped my elbow hard against a rough patch and nearly dropped the flashlight. When I finally stopped, gasping, I turned the light back on and saw the second handprint. Not red this time. Black, fingerless, a palm with no fingers. It pulsed once. I swear it pulsed, and then sank into the wall like water swallowing ink. I dropped the flashlight. The beam spun wildly as it hit the ground, catching something just ahead, half seen in the flicker. A hole in the tunnel floor, perfectly round, no debris, just open, like a mouth waiting for something to step too close. And there were footprints around it, bare, dozens, maybe hundreds, all facing the same direction, all facing me. I picked up the flashlight with trembling hands and backed away. But then the dragging sound returned, this time closer, much closer, scraping over concrete like bone over glass, slow, rhythmical, steady. That was the first time I heard the whisper. It wasn't words, not really, just a shape of meaning forming in my head, like something pressing itself against my thoughts. It said, "One opened, one must stay." I didn't answer, I just turned and ran again. But the tunnel had changed. It was different. Where the walls had been smooth before, now they bulged with veins. No, not veins, wires. Old blackened cords threaded through the concrete like arteries, pulsing faintly in sync with something I couldn't hear but could feel. My teeth ached from it. There was something living in the walls. Then, silence. The scraping stopped. The air stilled. My flashlight dimmed to orange, then blinked. And that's when I saw it, at the far edge of the beam. A figure, standing perfectly still. Too tall, wrong proportions. Its head tilted at an impossible angle, like it was listening to a sound I couldn't hear. Its arms hung too low, almost touching the floor. No eyes, no mouth, no features, just the suggestion of a face. It didn't move. Neither did I. Until it started leaning forward, without taking a step. I blinked. It was gone. But the handprint was back, this time on my jacket sleeve, bright red, fresh. And the dragging sound had started again, closer than before. I didn't sleep when I got back. Couldn't. I locked the motel door, jammed a chair under the handle, and turned on every single light. The fluorescent bathroom bulb buzzed overhead, but I left it on anyway. I kept waiting for the handprint to reappear. It didn't. Not on my sleeve, not on the floor, but I could still smell it. Iron, fruit, spoiled breath. I stripped off the jacket and stuffed it into a trash bag, then shoved it deep into the motel dumpster. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. I kept telling myself I imagined it, that I was overtired, that old tunnels do weird things to your senses, echoes, pressure, mold spores, maybe even gas leaks. I kept building those excuses like sandbags, but something kept poking holes in them, like the burn on my elbow. It wasn't scraped, it was branded. A ring-shaped mark, perfectly circular, with tiny radial lines like a clock or a dial. It didn't hurt, just itched constantly, like it wanted me to notice it, or the voices. I didn't hear them when I was awake, only when I started to drift off. A low hum at first, like someone singing underwater. Then something more deliberate. A whisper rising out of that darkness just behind my eyes, saying, "You brought it out." The next morning, I drove back to the tunnel. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. I needed to prove it was just a trick of the mind. Needed to see the daylight hit that concrete wall and remind myself nothing was supernatural. Nothing had followed me. Except the entrance was gone. Not just sealed again, gone. Like it had never been cut open. The vines were undisturbed. The steel was whole. The concrete unbroken. I ran my hands over the surface and felt nothing. No seams, no hollow thud, just cold stone. I even knocked. No echo this time. Something shifted behind me. I spun around, just trees. Silence. Then, the same handprint on my windshield, centered, perfect, red, dripping down the glass as if freshly pressed. No one had touched my car. I would have heard, I would have seen. That's when I realized the mistake wasn't opening the tunnel. It was coming out of it. I didn't go home. Instead, I drove aimlessly for hours, ending up at a gas station just outside Carrion Ridge. The place was old, dusty, and empty, except for a clerk who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. I tried to buy a drink and some painkillers, but the register kept crashing. "It does that when they're close," the clerk muttered. "What?" I asked. He stared at me for too long. Then his eyes dropped to my arm. The burn mark. The circular one. He stepped back. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered. "You shouldn't have come out." I asked him what that meant, begged him to explain. But he just shook his head and went into the back, locking the door behind him. I left without buying anything. When I got back to the car, the handprint had multiplied. 3 on the hood, 1 on each side mirror, all still wet. I wiped them off with a shirt and drove south. No plan, no destination, just motion. I needed to stay ahead of it, whatever it was. But the road didn't make sense anymore. Highway signs were in the wrong place. 1 mile felt like 10. I stopped at the same intersection 3 separate times, even though I never turned around. The GPS glitched, then went completely black. That's when I heard the scraping again. Not from the road this time, from the trunk. I slammed the brakes. The whole car jolted. I jumped out, heart pounding, circled to the back and popped the latch. Nothing, just the flashlight I left there, my crowbar, and a small puddle I couldn't explain. Thick, red, metallic smelling. I reached for the crowbar, but it wasn't mine. Not the same brand, not the same grip. It was older, rusted, too long, and engraved with those same circle inside circle patterns I saw in the tunnel. I backed away. Suddenly, I wasn't sure I ever left the tunnel at all. I found a library later that night, some tiny town called Legno. It smelled like mildew and old varnish. The computers were locked behind logins, but the microfilm archive was open. I typed 1 word into the index system. Tunnel. 1 result. October 29th, 1992. Carrion Ridge sealing ceremony postponed. Local officials blame unstable soil and unverified structural concerns. Ceremony quietly canceled. Tunnel presumed inaccessible. Presumed, not confirmed. I dug deeper. Scanned every article from October that year. Found a small column buried in the back pages. 3 workers missing after state project abruptly halted. Names unreleased. Unconfirmed reports of voices heard beneath site. Quote from anonymous worker. "It's not dirt under there. It's veins." No follow-ups. No photos. Just silence. Like the event had been erased. And then I saw it. On the corner of the article. A small watermark. The same ring-shaped symbol burned into my skin. As I printed the page, I heard someone whisper. Clear, close, right next to my ear. "You left the door open." The lights in the library flickered. The woman at the desk didn't look up, didn't react. It was like I was invisible, or like I'd brought something in that she refused to acknowledge. I ran out. Outside, my car windows were fogged from the inside, all of them. 1 word smeared across the glass. Stay. But I didn't. I drove. Again. But this time, something was in the back seat. I could hear it breathing, and it wasn't pretending anymore. I drove until sunrise, refusing to look in the rearview mirror. Every time my eyes drifted up toward it, I'd feel that pressure again, like 2 fingers pressing lightly against the back of my neck. Not pain, just presence. The sun didn't help. It looked wrong, pale, distorted, like it was shining through dirty glass. I stopped believing I was in the same version of the world I left. Eventually, the road ended. No warning, no detour. Just a chain-link fence and a rotting wooden sign that read, "Property of the United States Bureau of Geological Survey. Trespassers will be detained." Behind the fence was a building half swallowed by vines and time. White concrete, sun-bleached and split down the middle. No cars, no cameras. But the gate wasn't locked. I stepped inside. The air felt like the tunnel again. Quiet, too quiet, like sound was being absorbed. My boots echoed sharply on the old tile floor, which was cracked in places and covered in soot in others. There was a seal carved into the entrance hall. At first I thought it was the USGS insignia, but the details were wrong. Instead of a mountain, it showed a tunnel mouth. And instead of stars, the outer ring held symbols. The same circular markings I'd seen in the tunnel and on my skin. This wasn't a government building. Not exactly. I passed empty offices, busted vending machines, paper scattered like the building had been evacuated in a rush decades ago. And then I found a stairwell that led down, into the dark. Of course, I followed it, 3 levels below ground. No power, no windows. Just that strange, sterile smell. Cleaner, chemical, but faintly organic. Like someone had tried to bleach something awful and failed. I found a door marked Archive C. It had no handle, but the hinges were rusted halfway through, and the frame split when I kicked it. Inside, metal shelves, scattered microfilm reels, and hundreds of audio tapes, labeled by year. The tapes from 1992 were missing, but I found a box labeled Interim Interviews, Site 12, and loaded one into a nearby reel-to-reel. To my surprise, it still worked. The voice that came through was tired, young, male, probably no older than I am now. This is Tech Log 27A. Interview with maintenance contractor Michael Lang, Site 12, recorded October 22, 1992. Subject is agitated. Tape begins. There was a pause, then another voice, shaky, desperate. I told them not to drill past that wall. There were markings, damn it. The walls bled when we cut them. Bled. We thought it was rust, but it pulsed. And that sound, it wasn't machinery. Something was already awake. The voice broke off, then silence, then whispering. On the tape. Not the kind you miss here. Not interference. Words, layered and overlapping. Some in English, some in something older. Then the original voice returned. We opened a threshold. I saw it move. I saw it watching me through him. And now I'm dreaming the same dream every night. Standing in that tunnel, hearing it breathe. Only difference is, last night, he paused. It blinked. The tape clicked off. I stood there staring at the machine, heart pounding. Michael Lang. That name was in my grandfather's journal, scribbled in the margin of a map, right beside a warning. Lang saw too much. Never mention him to them. I started digging through the box, grabbing every tape, photo, scrap of paper that mentioned Site 12. Patterns began emerging. Repeating symbols, sealed records, employees disappearing after exposure to subject. But there were no photos of the tunnel interior, only sketches, the same ones my grandfather had drawn, but older. Dated back to 1936, 1914, even 1881. In every version, the tunnel mouth looked identical, smooth, circular, and wrong. It had never been built. It had always been found. Back upstairs, I broke into the director's office. Inside was a wall safe, still locked. But in a drawer, I found a Polaroid, faded and warped, but unmistakable. A man standing at the edge of the tunnel. His back turned, arms at his sides. There was something just beyond the entrance, barely visible. A blur, a suggestion of limbs or wings, like it was trying not to be photographed. The man in the photo wore a familiar jacket, my grandfather's. I left the facility with my hands shaking, my head pounding. Nothing made sense. The timeline was broken. The tunnel predated the survey project by over a century, and yet, somehow, my family was tied to it. The burn on my arm itched worse than ever. I looked down and realized it had changed. No longer just a ring. Now it had a second layer around it. Like a countdown. Like something was getting closer. At a diner an hour later, I asked for a phone book. The waitress looked at me like I was from another planet, but she brought one out. I looked up the name Michael Lang. One match. An address in St. Hevelin. Population under 500. Middle of nowhere. I drove straight there. The house was tiny, paint peeling, grass dead, a single porch light swaying in the breeze. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, and the door opened on its own. Inside, the house was dark, but not abandoned. Dust on the shelves, but food in the pantry. Mail stacked neatly, and on the wall, framed behind glass, was a photo I already knew by heart. The tunnel. Only this version was dated 1953, and in the corner, standing at the edge of the shadow, was the same faceless figure I'd seen inside. I turned to leave, only to find someone standing in the hallway. An old man, thin, pale, eyes full of sleep. "Michael Lang?" I asked. He didn't answer. He raised his hand and pointed at my arm. Then he said the first words I'd heard in hours. "It marked you." "Marked for what?" I asked. Michael didn't respond. He just turned and walked slowly into the back room, leaving the door open behind him. I followed, hesitant, heart thudding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The room was lined with shelves, not with books but journals, dozens of them. Some with cracked leather covers, others bound by hand with twine, all marked with the same symbol, the double-ringed circle that now burned on my arm. He sat on a stool, pulled one of the journals off the shelf, and opened it without looking. "Everyone thinks it's about the tunnel," he said, voice dry as dust. "It's not." I stayed quiet. "It's about what the tunnel lets in," he continued. "It was never a place. It was a threshold, and you crossed it. That means it's watching you now, studying your shape." I tried to interrupt. I asked if it could be stopped, closed, if I'd broken something that could be fixed. He looked up for the first time. His eyes were pale and glassy, but sharp underneath. "You think it's a door you can close," he said. "But it isn't a door. It's a mouth. And once it tastes you, it never forgets." I sat down hard on the floor. "You've seen it already," he said. "Not its face, not fully, but it was there. It's already showing itself in pieces." I thought about the thing I saw standing in the tunnel. Too tall, faceless, leaning toward me like it wanted to whisper something I'd never be able to forget. Michael picked up a photo from the table, one I hadn't seen yet. It showed 3 men standing outside the sealed tunnel, dressed in old USGS uniforms. One of them looked like a younger version of my grandfather. Michael pointed at the man on the left. "That's me," he said. The man in the photo didn't look old enough. He should have aged. But the lines of his face didn't match. Like someone had tried to redraw him from memory and gotten just a few features wrong. "How old are you?" I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he lifted his sleeve. His forearm was covered in rings, concentric circles, burned into the skin from elbow to wrist, each one slightly different, some small, some wide, some deeper than others. A few looked infected. "This is how it keeps time," he said. "Every time you dream about it, every time you hear it whisper, every time something impossible happens, it adds another." I looked down at my own arm. My second ring was starting to split. A thin black line now cut across it, like the beginning of a third. "I'm not staying here," I said. "If it's tracking me, I need to keep moving." Michael shook his head. "You can't outrun it." "I have to try." He stood slowly, walked back toward the door, and paused in the hallway. "If it shows you someone you trust," he said quietly, "don't speak to them. It's not them anymore." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know. I left just before sunset. The road out of St. Hevelin was deserted. No traffic, no lights, not even birds in the trees. I watched the tree line carefully. Every shadow looked too deep. And then my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a text. "Mara, where are you? Call me. Urgent." I stared at it. I hadn't told Mara anything. She didn't even know I'd left town. I pulled over and called the number. It rang once, twice. Then she answered, but not like I expected. Her voice was wrong. Too calm, too smooth, like it had been polished. "Hey, I've been worried about you." Static on the line, but underneath it I heard something else, dragging. "Mara," I said slowly, "how did you know where I was?" She paused. Then, "You told me. Yesterday. Don't you remember?" I ended the call. The phone rang again immediately. Same number. I turned it off. The last thing I saw on the screen before it blacked out was a notification. Voice message received. 00.14. It auto-played. No words, just breathing. Followed by a whisper, almost inaudible, but unmistakably mine. "I'm still in the tunnel." At a rest stop an hour later, I locked the car and sat on a bench near the vending machines. I just needed 5 minutes to think, But when I blinked, I saw something reflected in the plexiglass of the Coke machine. A shape, standing behind me. Tall, leaning forward. I spun around. Nothing. The itch on my arm flared. I pulled up my sleeve. Ring 3 had appeared. I was losing track of time, of what was real. I needed grounding, something familiar, so I called my brother. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Jesus, man, where have you been?" His voice, normal, panicked, real. "I need to ask you something," I said. "Sure, anything." "What do you remember about Grandpa?" Silence, then, you know, the fishing trips, the weird stories. That tunnel thing he was obsessed with before he died. I froze. I'd never told anyone about the journal, not even my brother. "Did he ever show it to you?" "The journal?" he asked. "Yeah, of course. Didn't he leave you a copy?" I ended the call. My brother never saw that journal. I'd found it in a locked chest, hidden in insulation. There was only one, and whoever I just spoke to knew too much. Back in the car, the passenger seatbelt was buckled. I hadn't touched it. The air smelled sweet again, rotting fruit and copper. I drove until I reached a motel with flickering neon and a rusted vacancy sign. Checked in, didn't unpack. Locked the door behind me. Sat on the bed with the journal on my lap. One of the back pages had come loose. I flipped it open, scrawled in a shaking hand. "When it can't follow, it sends pieces of itself." And beneath that, a second note written in a different pen. "It wears the people you trust." Then something knocked at the door. 3 sharp taps. And a voice, my brother's voice, from the other side. "Hey, you forgot your bag. Let me in." I didn't move. The voice outside the motel door sounded exactly like my brother's. Same tone, same casual rhythm. The kind of voice you'd trust without thinking. But it came too quickly. I'd just ended the call. There hadn't been time for anyone to drive here, especially not him. He lived 8 hours away. 3 more knocks, louder this time. "Hey, you left your bag. Open up." I looked at the door handle. It hadn't turned. Not yet. But the air had changed. Warmer, denser, like something behind that door was exhaling against the wood. I stayed perfectly still, breathing through my nose, counting the seconds. Silence. Then, the peephole darkened. I hadn't noticed it until then. A faint circle of light in the center of the door. Now it was black, blocked. Something, or someone, was standing directly in front of it, watching me. I moved slowly across the room, careful not to make the floorboards creak. My arm burned. I knew before looking that another ring had formed. 4. I grabbed the motel room's hairdryer from the bathroom, flicked it on, and pointed it toward the door. The moment the air hit the wood, the peephole cleared. No one there. But across the room, the mirror was fogged. Words began forming on the glass, slowly, as if written from the other side. "Let me in." I backed away. The air smelled like iron and roses. Too sweet, too sharp. That smell again, the one from the tunnel. I grabbed my keys, threw on my jacket, and bolted. Outside, the parking lot was empty. Every single car, including mine, was gone. I ran down the road. No GPS, no lights. Just a cold wind and the hum of fluorescent bulbs fading behind me. The further I got from the motel, the more the world felt off, like it was unraveling at the edges. The moon overhead wasn't full anymore. It had been, earlier that night. I remembered it clearly, but now it was a perfect crescent, too symmetrical, too sharp, and it wasn't glowing. It was watching, like an eye, like the ring on my arm. The wind shifted. I heard whispering again, just outside the range of clarity, a language I couldn't name but somehow understood. It felt like a warning, or a promise. Up ahead, a structure loomed in the dark, a church, wooden, abandoned, but intact. I pushed the door open. It didn't creak. It sighed. Inside, rows of rotting pews, broken hymnals, a pulpit warped by time, and behind it, nailed to the wall, was a mirror, cracked but intact. I stepped closer, and I realized the mirror wasn't reflecting me. It showed a tunnel, not just any tunnel, that tunnel. The same sloped concrete walls, the same rust-dark handprints, the same curve into blackness. Except now, there was movement inside. Slow, loping, something crawling toward the glass. I turned away, but I didn't leave. Something in the church kept me rooted. I looked up at the ceiling, expecting to see rot or cobwebs. Instead, I saw symbols, dozens, carved into the beams. The same circular forms from the journal, from the wall, from my skin. This place was part of it, not a sanctuary, a vessel. From the corner of my eye, I saw someone sit in the front pew. No sound, no movement, just a figure suddenly present. I should have run. Instead, I asked, "Do you see it too?" The figure nodded slowly. A woman, older, face hidden by a veil. Her hands rested on a small black book that looked burned around the edges. "You've been marked," she said. "How do I stop it?" She didn't answer right away, just tilted her head and whispered, "Do you remember what you left behind?" Her voice echoed, but not in the church, in my head. I blinked, and she was gone. But the black book remained. I picked it up. Inside, sketches, dozens. All of the same shape, the tunnel mouth. But some showed people walking into it. Others showed things coming out. One page was different. It had only words. "You are not the first. You are not the last." It doesn't follow. It awakens what was already inside. On the last page, a single phrase, scratched violently into the paper until it tore. "When it looks like you, run." A bell rang above me. No bell tower, no mechanism. Just the sound, deep and metallic, as if struck from inside a cavern. I looked at my arm. Ring 5. I didn't feel the new burn, but I knew exactly what it meant. I stepped outside the church. The town was gone. The motel, the road, the trees, all gone. In their place was the tunnel. Open, breathing. At the edge of the mouth stood a person, back turned, arms at their sides, wearing my clothes. I couldn't see the face, but I knew. It was me. It stood there in silence, this thing wearing my body. Perfect posture, same jacket, same torn jeans. Even the scar on my left hand from when I fell off my bike when I was 7. But it wasn't me. It was too still. No breathing, no blinking, just waiting. I should have run. Instead, I stared. Then slowly it tilted its head toward me, just slightly, like it had heard something far behind me. Not a threat, not fear, just interest. And then it smiled. I didn't wait to see what came next. I ran. There was no road, no sky. Just fog and dust and the outline of the tunnel behind me, following without moving. Every direction looked the same, flat, gray, horizonless. Like the idea of a world, not the world itself. The book from the church burned in my coat pocket, the words inside repeating over and over in my head. When it looks like you, run. I didn't know if I was still in my own world or some echo of it, but I ran until my legs ached, until my lungs gave out, until my vision blurred, and still, the tunnel was there behind me. Not closer, not further, just present. I dropped to my knees, shaking, and screamed. Nothing answered, no birds, no wind, no sound except my own breath and the crunch of grit under my hands. That's when I noticed the earth beneath me wasn't earth. It was concrete, same texture, same faint slope. I was already back inside. I don't remember blacking out, but when I opened my eyes, I was in a house I didn't recognize. Old wallpaper, a rotary phone, family portraits in tarnished frames. A fire flickered in the hearth, real, or at least close enough. I sat up too fast. My vision swam. The room tilted like it wasn't built with human geometry. The door frame was just slightly too narrow. The clock had 13 numbers. Someone had laid me on a couch. A blanket covered my legs, and on the table in front of me was a steaming cup of something dark and bitter. I smelled the sweetness again. Not the drink, the air. Something had been here. Maybe still was. I stood, legs weak. My boots were gone. My jacket, too. The burn mark on my arm throbbed as I crossed to the mirror above the fireplace. I saw myself, but just for a second. Then my reflection lagged. It blinked after I did, tilted its head a moment too late, moved its hand out of sync. Not a trick of glass, not fatigue. It was watching me, and it wasn't me. I turned and left the room. The hallway was longer than the house should have allowed. Paint peeled in long, curling strips. The floor creaked like it was alive. Doors lined the corridor, all closed, all unmarked, except one. At the very end, slightly ajar. Inside, I found a tape recorder on the floor, running, no tape, no battery, but it was still spinning, playing back a voice I knew, mine. I thought I could escape. I thought if I kept moving, it wouldn't find me, but it was never behind me. It was inside. The voice grew distorted. I don't know which thoughts are mine anymore. I don't know which face is real. If you're hearing this, it's already too late. I smashed the recorder. The room went silent, but the silence didn't last. A floorboard behind me creaked. I turned. Nothing. But on the wall where the mirror should have been, another ring had appeared. Same size, same burn pattern, like someone had branded the drywall from the inside. Ring 6. I found a staircase, narrow, leading down. The walls here were dirt now, not wood, damp, close. Something brushed past my shoulder, even though there was no space for anything to pass. I heard breathing. I didn't know if it was mine. The basement looked like the tunnel again. Wider, but darker. A single bulb flickered overhead. Beneath it stood a person facing the wall, hair covering their face, dressed in white. I opened my mouth to speak and stopped, because she turned before I made a sound. Mara, or something that wore her shape. Her mouth moved, but no sound came out. Then she raised her hand and pointed at the burn on my arm. Her eyes were hollow, black, not empty, full of something else, moving, turning. I stepped back. She followed, every step perfectly silent. I turned and fled up the stairs, back through the hallway, into the living room. Only it wasn't the living room anymore. The furniture was gone. The walls were concrete again, and the ceiling dripped something thick and warm. I was back in the tunnel. The house had been a trick, or worse, a memory. There were no exits. The farther I ran, the more the walls pulsed. I saw things inside them, faces, fingers, watching. Then I saw myself again, standing still, but this time closer. My duplicate reached out toward me and opened its mouth. Something inside moved, not a tongue, not teeth, something else. A whisper poured out, not into my ears but into my mind. You were always the threshold. You were always the threshold. The words didn't echo. They settled, heavy, final, like they'd always been there, waiting for me to remember them. I stumbled backward from the thing wearing my face. My boots scraped the concrete floor and the sound didn't carry. It was swallowed by the tunnel walls, eaten by something deeper than silence. The duplicate didn't move. It just stood there, hand still outstretched, as if offering something I couldn't see. Then I noticed what was behind it. A door, not part of the original tunnel. This one was older. Stone and metal, etched with sigils I had only seen in the margins of my grandfather's journal, symbols he had drawn and immediately crossed out. One of them was the double ring now burned into my arm. The seventh one had just appeared. I didn't feel it anymore. The pain was gone, only a cold numbness in its place. I stepped toward the door. The duplicate tilted its head in approval, or mockery, I couldn't tell. As I reached for the handle, it whispered, "You were never meant to leave." I opened it anyway. The room beyond wasn't a room. It was an archive. Hundreds of shelves, each stacked with boxes labeled with names. Not documents, not reports, names, and not just random ones. Some I recognized, from news stories, from missing persons reports, from my own family tree, Lang, Holstrom, Becker, my grandfather's name, my mother's maiden name, my own. I pulled the box labeled with my name from the shelf. Inside, a cassette tape, a photo, and a blood-stained sheet of paper folded 4 times over. The photo showed a child, me, maybe 6 years old, standing in front of a cave entrance in the woods, smiling. But there was something behind me, barely visible, something tall and pale and not fully formed, like it had stepped halfway into the world and decided to wait. I didn't remember that day. The back of the photo had a single word written in my grandfather's hand: breach. I played the tape. The static hit first, then a voice. Not mine, not Michael Lang's. It was my grandfather. If you found this, you've inherited it. I tried to end it with me, tried to bury the tunnel, seal it with the others, but the pattern's too old, the hunger too deep. He coughed violently. A pause, then more. It doesn't want to kill, not exactly. It wants to become. That's why it mimics. That's why it marks. It uses memory like a blueprint. It builds itself with us. And some of us are born too close to the seam. You were born during the breach, weren't you? October 10th, 3:23 a.m. I remember the lights flickering, the hospital losing power, the blood on the walls. I dropped the tape recorder. The date was right. The time was exact. My birth certificate said the same. 3:23 a.m. The same time I saw my reflection move for the first time. The same time I heard the dragging start. My life didn't begin at birth. It began at entry. I stumbled out of the archive, clutching the box. The tunnel walls pulsed brighter now, faint bioluminescence glowing beneath the concrete skin, like capillaries carrying something just below the surface. I didn't know where I was going anymore. Every turn looked the same. Every corridor led back to the same stretch of wall. The air felt tighter. The pressure in my skull building with every step. And then I saw the chapel, inside the tunnel. Impossible. But there it was, stone pews carved directly into the walls, a pulpit shaped like an altar, and behind it, a mural, huge, faded. It showed the tunnel, but not just one, dozens, radiating outward like a root system, branching across the globe, each marked with the double ring. And at the center, a single figure, not human, not fully formed, covered in hands, some grasping, some pointing, some reaching toward the viewer. I stepped closer and saw that each hand had a face carved into the palm, all of them mine. A low sound began to rise, chanting, but not with voices, with memories. I heard my mother calling me to dinner, the crack of my brother's laugh when we were kids, Mara's voice saying, "I love you," before she ever had. All of them speaking in unison, in a tone I couldn't replicate but instantly recognized, because it was how I spoke in dreams. You are the seam. You are the echo. You are the mouth turned inward. I collapsed at the base of the mural. The final ring carved itself into my arm. 8. And then the tunnel split, not metaphorically. The wall in front of me peeled open like skin, revealing a corridor of raw, pulsing tissue, lined with symbols. At the end, a mirror, not glass, still water, thick, opaque, perfectly still, and in its reflection, Mara, standing alone, crying. She reached out toward the surface, whispered my name. I stepped closer, and behind her, something moved. Something with my hands, my eyes, my voice, and its mouth opened. I should have run. I should have screamed, turned around, anything, but I just stood there, watching. The water didn't ripple. Mara's face in the reflection stayed fixed, lips moving silently as her hand pressed against the surface from inside. She wasn't here, not really. She was trapped in there, wherever there was, but it wasn't her I was afraid of. It was the thing behind her. It wore me like skin. Same eyes, same mouth, but everything was off. Subtle at first, the way it blinked a second too late. The slight twitch in its left eye, the smile that never touched the eyes. It was me, but only on the outside. Inside it was something else, and it wanted out. I reached for the mirror. The surface pulsed like breath. The moment my fingers touched it, my mind split. I saw everything, not just the tunnel, not just the faces. I saw what came before. A place beneath places. A voice before language. A hunger that didn't eat flesh, but identity. It devoured the idea of a person, consumed memories like calories, rewrote them, and it had touched my family before. My grandfather, my mother, me. This wasn't a haunting. This was a bloodline under contract. The mirror showed me a choice. 2 doors appeared behind Mara, one marked with a symbol I recognized, the double ring, burning white. The other was blank, smooth like bone. If I pulled her through the blank door, I could save her. But the voice made it clear, something would take her place. Something would wear her face, walk in her body, speak in her voice, and no one would know. Not at first. If I let her go through the marked door instead, she'd vanish, but the reflection, the thing with my shape, would be trapped. One of us had to stay behind. One of us had to become the mouth. Mara looked up at me again. This time, she spoke clearly. Please. My hand hovered above the surface. The burn on my arm, now 8 rings deep, glowed faintly in the reflection. My skin didn't feel like mine anymore. My body was no longer a boundary, it was a threshold. One that could be crossed in either direction. If I made the wrong choice, I wouldn't just lose her. I'd lose everyone. The voice spoke again, but this time, it wasn't in my mind. It came from behind me. It's already decided. I turned slowly. Michael Lang stood there, gaunt and hollow-eyed, holding his own arm, burned just like mine, except his bore 9 rings, and the 9th one was cracked. You passed the 8th, he said, voice trembling. No one's ever made it to 9 without changing. Changing into what? I asked. He didn't answer. He just opened his mouth wide, and I saw something inside. A second mouth, smiling. He dropped to his knees and whispered, "Make it choose you, or it takes her." Then he screamed, ragged and inhuman, and collapsed into ash. I faced the mirror again. My reflection still stood behind Mara, closer now. It didn't blink, it didn't breathe, it only watched. I pressed both hands to the surface. It parted like skin, and I stepped through. Inside, the world collapsed, not exploded, not burned, collapsed, like a memory unraveling, like the fabric of my mind being rewritten, room by room. I saw moments from my life play backward. Birthday candles, whispered apologies, Mara's laugh. And then they weren't mine anymore. They belonged to the other me. It had stolen them. The only way to get them back was to take something from it in return. I grabbed Mara's arm. She turned to me, eyes wide. But now she was flickering, like a projection glitching. Her mouth twisted, then corrected. Her tears ran in reverse. She was already being rewritten. The choice was no longer about saving her. It was about remembering which one of us was real. I heard footsteps behind me. The thing had crossed the threshold. I didn't turn around. I just asked, "What's my first memory?" Silence. Then, falling into water. Wrong. That was my brother's first memory. Mine was different. A hallway, a scream, a mirror that didn't reflect. I turned and faced it. The thing that wore me opened its mouth to speak, and I stepped into it. Not metaphor, not symbolism. I stepped into myself, and the world went black. I woke up in the motel room. Same wallpaper, same flickering light. The clock read 3:23 a.m. My boots were muddy, my jacket was soaked. The mirror was fogged. I stood, the TV buzzed with static. The phone rang. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked into the bathroom, looked at my reflection, and smiled. Too wide, too still. Then I reached up, touched the mirror, and whispered, "I made my choice." But deep down, I couldn't remember what it had been. I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the tears on the mirror. They didn't feel like mine. My face didn't look wrong. No extra eyes, no stretched smile, no twisted bones. But the reflection wasn't following me anymore. It was leading. Every movement I made, it anticipated. And I knew. Whatever choice I'd made in that other place, it hadn't ended it. It had invited it closer. I left the motel before the sun rose. The air outside was wrong. Too still, too warm for that hour. No insects, no birds. Even the sky felt artificial, like someone had painted it overhead and forgot to let it dry. I drove west. No map, no plan, just away. But no matter how far I went, the signs started repeating. Carrion Ridge, 3 miles, Carrion Ridge, 2 miles, Carrion Ridge, 3 miles backwards. Time was folding. The odometer blinked, then reset to 0. The gas gauge froze. My reflection in the rear view blinked without me. Then I heard Mara's voice in the back seat. I remember the fire now. I swerved. The road disappeared under my wheels. I hit gravel, then dirt, then nothing. The car stalled and coasted to a stop. I turned around slowly. The back seat was empty, but the rear door was open. I walked. How long? I don't know. I passed the same tree 3 times. Not similar. The same. Same knot in the bark, same broken branch. Each time, the air grew heavier. The ringing in my ears returned. My skin crawled. Then I found the grave. A single wooden marker, crooked and burned. No name. Just a symbol carved into the wood with something jagged. The double ring. Beneath it, someone had written, "He chose wrong." I dropped to my knees and dug with my hands. Dirt gave way easily, too easily, like it had been dug up before. 3 feet down, I hit cloth. I pulled it free. It was a jacket, my jacket. And beneath it, a body, dried, hollow-eyed, mouth frozen mid-scream, and wearing my face. I fell backward, retching. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, but when I looked up, I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was in the tunnel, again. But not as it was before. Not damp and cracked. Now it was clean, perfect, finished. As if whatever was building itself through me had completed the work. And that's when I understood. There was never a way out. No path, no closure. The tunnel didn't lead back to the world. It led deeper into me. I ran anyway. Not because I believed in escape, but because instinct refused to surrender. The walls pulsed with light now, dim, reddish, like veins illuminated from within. They beat in rhythm with my heartbeat, then began to lead it. Faster, louder. I passed a room I'd never seen before. Inside, a figure sat in a chair, head slumped. Flickering monitors lined the wall, each one showing a different version of me. One crying, one laughing, one clawing at a wall, one whispering something in reverse, and one staring directly at the camera, at me. It mouthed something I couldn't hear. I leaned closer to the screen. The words formed again. "You never left." I turned from the monitors and found the exit door, the same one I'd entered through that first night. The rusted hatch. The air smelled clean beyond it. Grass, rain, hope. I grabbed the handle and pulled. It opened. Outside, night sky. Real stars, crickets, a breeze that didn't smell like rot. I stepped through and froze, because every person I passed, on the road, in the gas station, through town, they were smiling. Exactly the same smile. Every single one. No blinking, no speaking, just smiling, like masks barely holding back something deeper. And then all at once, they stopped walking. Every single person turned, faced me, and whispered, in perfect unison, "We needed a door. You gave us one." I ran, back through town, back to the edge of the forest, but every trail curved. Every sign led back to the same intersection. I checked my arm. A 9th ring, split and cracked like Michael Lang's. I remembered what he said. No one makes it past 8 without changing. And I realized I already had. I reached a clearing just before dawn. The sun rose behind me, or so I thought, until I turned to look and saw no sun, only a tunnel and a figure stepping out of it, wearing my clothes, wearing my face, carrying something, a bundle, wrapped in a blanket. It laid the bundle on the ground and turned back toward the tunnel, melting into the darkness. I stepped closer, and the bundle stirred. A baby, sleeping, eyes still closed. Its tiny arm shifted, and I saw the skin, marked, with a faint red circle. I didn't pick up the child. I couldn't, because some part of me, maybe the last part that was still mine, knew the moment I touched it, something ancient would recognize me, claim me, but I couldn't leave it there either. The bundle breathed, shifted, fingers twitching, and that mark, so faint, like a birthmark not fully formed, glowed softly beneath the skin. A single ring, pale red. The first ring. My first ring. That's when it hit me. This wasn't the beginning of a cycle. It was the middle. I looked around the clearing. Trees bent in the wrong direction, as if leaning away from something. Wind circled but never entered. The world had shape, but no weight. And the air smelled like the tunnel. Sweet, rotting, alive. I turned away, left the child behind, and walked back toward the open tunnel. It wasn't there. Not anymore. Just my house. Exactly as I remembered it. Every cracked shingle, every crooked window, even the porch light flickered the same way it always had when the wiring got damp. It shouldn't have been here. But it was, and worse. I could hear someone inside. Not moving, speaking, repeating one sentence over and over in a low, broken voice. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I stepped closer, and the front door opened on its own. Inside, photographs of people I didn't know, but somehow recognized. They wore my face, but not my eyes. Their smiles were wider, their posture too upright, like they'd been sculpted to resemble me, by something that had never actually met me. I touched one frame. It was warm. The house whispered behind the walls, voices in sync like wind through 1,000 mouths, all speaking as one. He led us through. He opened. He bled. He chose. I walked past the living room and into the hallway. My mother's room was exactly as I remembered it, except her rosary was missing. Her closet was open. Her mirror had been replaced with a metal plate, because she had seen it too, because she had marked herself. And then I saw it, scratched into the floor beneath the hallway carpet. It doesn't kill, it replaces. I ran to the basement door. The air grew colder, heavier. With every step downward, the house changed. Mold creeping across the walls, light bulbs flickering, stairs softening beneath my feet. At the bottom, a room I had never seen, lined with mirrors, not reflective, just surfaces, liquid, thick, oily, each one pulsed with heat. And behind each, I saw a version of myself, one screaming until his throat bled, one laughing with a mouthful of teeth that didn't belong, one watching a tunnel collapse behind him, one cradling the same child I had just abandoned, and one, whispering to someone out of frame. I leaned toward that last one. The reflection turned and locked eyes with me, and spoke. We never escaped. We only traded places. I stumbled backward and hit something solid, a wall of flesh. It breathed. The basement had grown lungs. Veins pulsed in the ceiling. The air was thick with wet heat, and from behind the mirrors came a single massive exhale, as though the house itself had taken a breath. I turned and saw it. Not a face, not a creature, a presence, endless, faceless, a shape made of wrong angles and unformed potential. Not meant to be seen, but seen anyway. It stood at the heart of the tunnel that was a house, and it wore me, not like a costume, not like a disguise. It wore me the way a voice wears a word. Its movements were mine, but not for me. It gestured and I stepped forward, not because I wanted to, because it was already decided. The creature opened its mouth, not to speak but to invite. Inside, 1,000 eyes, 1,000,000 fingers. Every sound I'd ever heard played backward and upside down. At the center of its mouth, a staircase. And without thinking, without choosing, I stepped inside. I was falling again, but not down, inward. Through memories I hadn't lived, lives I hadn't led, births that weren't mine, deaths that hadn't happened yet. And at the end of it all, a room with a chair, one chair and a mirror, The only real one. It didn't reflect my face. It showed the tunnel, waiting, and I understood. The monster was never the thing behind the door. The monster was the invitation, the choice, the need to know, the urge to go deeper. It had no shape of its own. It used ours, and mine was the perfect fit. I sat down. I looked into the mirror, and I smiled, because now I finally saw what it saw in me. I don't remember how long I sat there. The chair didn't feel like wood or metal. It felt like breath, like something exhaling through me, holding me still, gently, but firmly. The mirror no longer reflected the tunnel, or even my body. It showed a shape forming in smoke. At first, it was nothing but silhouette. Then, pieces. My left hand, my smile, my childhood scar. It wasn't copying me. It was rebuilding me. Somewhere far away, I heard footsteps. Familiar cadence, measured, heavy. I knew who it was before he stepped into view. Michael Lang, but older now, or maybe younger. Time bent around him like heat. His eyes were hollow. The 9-ring burn on his arm had spread up his neck, black veins like ink beneath skin. He didn't speak, just stared. And then he pointed at the mirror, at me, or what used to be me. "Is this it?" I whispered. Michael blinked slowly. "It's not what it becomes," he said. "It's what you let it take." Then he was gone. Not walked away. Gone. Unmade. I stood, or thought I did. My body moved, but not because I willed it. The limbs were slower, too smooth. The skin didn't ache anymore. No breath, no weight. I looked down at my arm. The rings were gone, replaced by a single symbol, an open eye. Inside the eye, the tunnel, a perfect spiral. Not horizontal, vertical. As if all this time, I hadn't walked into something. I had descended. The room dissolved around me. Walls stretched. The chair sank into the floor. I was alone again. Only I wasn't, because now I felt them. Everyone the tunnel had touched. Everyone who'd entered, who'd listened, who'd accepted even the smallest question into their minds. Not souls, not spirits, impressions, fossils of thought. They whispered, not in words, but in rhythm, a language of patterns, circular, repetitive, unending. We are memory without anchor. We are hunger without shape. We are the mouth, now shaped like you. And I understood. This wasn't possession. It was submersion, a drowning of the self, layer by layer, memory by memory, not erased, but absorbed, the way water absorbs ink, the way silence absorbs confession. I saw Mara again, or something shaped like her. She stood in the tunnel, backlit by flickering red light. Her eyes were empty, but kind, familiar. She held out her hand. I stepped forward, but she didn't move, just whispered, "If you remember me, don't follow." Her shape peeled apart like paper, folding into the wall. And I forgot what her voice sounded like, just like that. Gone. Pieces of me began drifting, the sound of my father's laugh, the taste of snow on the first day of winter, the smell of pine needles in my childhood room. One by one, they blinked out. Not stolen, given. Each time I chose not to fight, I gave something up. And every time I gave something up, I fit better into what waited on the other side. I reached the end of the corridor. No door, just a hole, wider than before, alive, breathing. Not just a tunnel anymore, a throat, pulsing, wet, warm, and I knew this was the final crossing. Beyond it, I would no longer think in language, no longer remember a name, no longer wonder who I'd been before this moment. But the urge remained, one last sliver of me clinging to the edges of selfhood. A question. Why me? And the answer came from all directions. Soft, gentle, true. Because you asked, because you listened, because you went where others turned back, because you opened, and what opens Must welcome. I stepped into the dark, not blindly, willingly. The breath of the thing became my breath, its silence, my silence. And in that final instant before the last thought dissolved, I saw my reflection, not in glass, not in water, in someone else's eyes. A child, eyes wide, watching. Just before the tunnel sealed behind me, I woke up on the floor of my apartment, lights off, windows open, air heavy with the scent of dust and wet concrete. Everything looked the same, the coffee mug on the counter, the boots by the door, the jacket slung over the chair, still stained with dirt I couldn't explain. But something was wrong. Not out of place, out of alignment. The shadows fell at the wrong angles. The hum of the refrigerator was half a second too slow. My clock blinked 3:23 a.m., even though I remembered setting it before I left. And the mirror in the hallway. I walked past it, stopped, backed up. It reflected the room perfectly, except I wasn't in it. I didn't scream, didn't panic, because the part of me that might have wasn't here anymore. I walked into the bathroom, splashed water on my face, looked in the mirror again. This time my reflection was there, but it didn't blink, didn't follow. It stared ahead, mouth twitching slightly, as if trying to remember how to shape a smile. And then it whispered, "I'll take it from here." The next day, people noticed something was different. The neighbors said I seemed more relaxed. My brother said I listened better. Mara texted me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to, because whoever she was texting wasn't me. Days passed. The world spun on. The tunnel was never mentioned in the news. No reports. No missing persons. The map still showed a blank spot near Carrion Ridge, but no one asked why. Because no one remembered it was ever there, except for me, or what's left of me. I started dreaming again, always the same, a room of mirrors, each one filled with a version of myself, smiling, screaming, decaying, whispering. Some of them blink in sync, some don't blink at all. And in the dream, I'm always watching from the other side, like I'm trapped behind the glass, while something else wears my skin. Then the messages started. Random numbers, blocked callers, voicemails with no voices, just the sound of dragging, and always at the same time, 3:23 a.m. The first time I deleted them. The second time I threw the phone away. It didn't help, because it wasn't coming through the phone. It was coming through me. The thing that came back in my place knows how to smile now. It goes to work, pays bills, stares at the sky like it's never seen stars before. It pretends so well that even I almost forget. Almost. But some nights, I catch glimpses. A face in the microwave. A figure on the other side of the street. A memory that doesn't belong to me. Once, I saw a child walking past my building. She stopped, looked up at my window, raised her arm, and showed me her forearm. One ring, red, faint, new. I know what's coming next. The tunnel isn't a place. It's a pattern, a rhythm. It doesn't need to be found, only remembered. And once you remember it, it begins again. It opens through thought, through curiosity, through the moment you ask, "What was that sound?" Through the second you think, "I should have turned around." Through the feeling of being watched in a mirror that never moved. It opens when you listen too long, when you follow the voice that shouldn't be there, when you read too far. Like now, like this. If you're still here, you've heard it. Not with your ears, but with the part of you that listens behind thought. Don't look at your reflection right now. Don't check your phone. And for the love of everything, if you hear dragging in the hallway, don't open the door. It's not knocking for entry. It's knocking for exchange. And once you answer, you become the door. If you ever hear whispering from the wrong side of a locked room, don't answer. It doesn't want to speak. It wants to remember itself through you. Leave a comment if something watched you after reading this.